I recently attended 3 days of adventure bike training with RawHyde Adventures in their California location. This video is going to cover the first day, which was a Friday, and it was meant to be a pre-training clinic, which is something that is optional that you can take before the main training during the Saturday and the Sunday. Only 5 people had signed up for this day, and they had a few cancellations, and then a couple of people had problems with their bike, so I ended up being the only person present on this day, which meant that I ended up getting one-on-one time with the instructor, even though I wasn't actually there paying for a one-on-one session. So we ended up doing kind of the steps of the pre-training clinic, but then also sprinkling in some individualized activities that sort of fit my skill level. If you're interested in the pros and cons of one-on-one training versus group training, feel free to check out the previous video on my channel. The first exercise involved walking the bike forward at idle on a slight incline, using only the clutch, and then backing it down again, still only using the clutch. Yeah. The next variant of this exercise was doing the same thing, but walking alongside the bike instead of being on the bike. Okay.
You go back like this. Try to look down the hill. And again, the key with this one is slow.
Yeah. I'll spare you the first-person view of me doing this, because as exercises go, this one is particularly boring to just watch on video, I think, if you're not the one doing it.
Like this?
Next up, we went through how to pick up your bike. Both how to do so alone and how to do it well with somebody else assisting. Although the technique for doing it alone works really well, the rule of thumb is that if you're dropping the bike during training, you're always having somebody else, either a teacher or one of the other people being taught, helping you pick it up so that people aren't getting too tired and so on. Next up is going really, really slow without stalling. And the first drop of the day. Next up, we're practicing trail stops, meaning you come to a stop just momentarily without putting your foot down or anything, and then continuing. Intended to allow you to take a pause, look around a little bit, and assess the situation and continue. Then we're doing emergency braking, right now just with the front for practice purposes, with the goal of locking the front wheel momentarily, basically, or at least working up to that. Although we do have ABS, so we're not actually locking it. But the idea is to get a feel for what it feels like to really apply the brake fully on this kind of surface. Next up are the rear wheel skids, demonstrated here by the instructor. And then it's my turn. Next, we did a little bit of rear skid turns around cones. I don't think this is normally what you would do in the pre-training clinic. I think this is just because it was just the two of us, and yeah, it made sense given how I was doing, because we didn't do this even on the second day of the full training. So aside from this pre-clinic here with a larger group, we never actually did this in the Intro to Adventure course. Next up, it's my turn. I had actually practiced this a little bit while going on the trails, so this wasn't the first time I had done this, but this is my first time doing it around cones. Next up are tight turns.
You can take your inside foot off because you're not using it. I'm making sure.
Starting with a climb. Then we went on a bit of a trail ride. As you can see, the first climb here was a little bit surprisingly difficult. So that's a pretty big rut. This is not something that you would, again, this is another one of those cases where if you're in there with a group doing a pre-training clinic for the Intro to Adventure, this is not the kind of terrain that you're going to be riding. This was more, it was one-on-one, whatever, and he was just taking me on a ride.
I had no idea this was just
Yeah, as you can see, taking it really slowly, a few feet at a time. Don't want to fall into that rut. Eventually I got out of it, but not without dropping the bike at the very end. Whoops. There we go.
I'd rather pick up the bike. So
the fact that the instructor also dropped his bike made me feel a little bit better about the whole thing.
holy shit. I will not be taking the intro class this way. Nor you and I, even if we do something different. Yeah, that's went from the shallow end of the pool to the deep end real quick.
Indeed. In general, dropping the bike is completely expected during these training sessions, and like the instructors will drop their bike sometimes and so on. It's very much something that they try to make a celebrated thing and so on. So like you don't have to worry about, oh my god, am I going to drop the bike and look bad or something like that. It's totally expected. Everybody drops their bike a few times, completely normal. Here's a second incline, which I actually am kicking myself for not making. I was so focused on staying out of the rut that I went too far to the right and then ended up going into the rut instead and having to recover. Yes, almost. Again, this is more him taking me in a one-on-one basis and not something that you're expecting to be doing on your first day if you're new to it and taking Intro to Adventure training. As I alluded to in my previous video, this is one of those things where if you're one-on-one and the instructor can gauge what level you're at and so on, it can be customized to your preferences and your skill sets and your needs. We then kept riding a little bit. Nothing as complicated or difficult came up again. I'll show you some of the riding footage because I actually like the whole area here. There's a lot of little trails and like it's just a fun place to ride. So I'll keep a few minutes of the raw riding footage here. You okay? You okay?
Yeah. Yeah, not very packed.
And here's the two-person bike pickup technique.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that front just washed out on me.
Yeah.
It doesn't look so, it looks hard packed, but it's not.
do apologize for my shitty clutch and throttle control.
Oh, sorry. That wasn't as clean as his. Shouldn't have gone into that rut. I mean, that was not a problem, but I should have been avoiding it just by default.
Alright, enough with the trail footage. Next up is the ribbon course, which is a small little course meant to sort of test your skills that you've been building up through the exercises and see how you're doing overall. Quite fun to go through. I kind of missed that, unfortunately. And then a little bit more trail riding. Again, I really like the whole situation and the terrain here, so I'm going to show you a couple of minutes of this as well.
Slightly sketchy there. Whew.
And now it's a little bit of following the lines over here.
Oh, that was cheating.
And then the sand pit. This is my first time going through. And again, because this is awesome. This time, upon the recommendation of the instructor, I went slower intentionally to make it harder for myself, just so that you can sort of feel what it's like when you go too slow. Time to start in sand.
All right. Let me actually. It is off. Okay. There we go.
And then I did the ribbon course a couple of more times. This was the end of the day, or I should say it's a half day really. The pre-clinic is like, what, 4 hours, 4 hours or something like that instead of a full day. Whereas the Saturday and the Sunday are like full days with a lunch break in between. And I'll probably be uploading a video with covering that next. For now though, this was my sort of mix between a pre-clinic and one-on-one instruction. Hopefully it might have been interesting and helpful, especially if you're considering getting training.